Should we go?
Okay. Yeah, should I fire it up or is it already? Testing. Oh, look at that. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending what is our first public meeting for our Van Raalte Avenue Improvement Project. Thank you for cooperating with us on some technical difficulties. We do have things, I think, squared away, and I believe that we're online on the YouTube channel. So for those of you that are tuning in through YouTube, we're going to monitor the chat. If there's questions, feel free to plug those in on your chat box, and then we'll get to those at the end of the meeting. Okay, so let's see what's here. This is going to cooperate. All right, so introductions. My name's Brian White. I'm with the City of Holland Transportation Office. We have Brian Ritchie here from the Board of Public Works, Water, Wastewater. We have Aaron Neatling and Derek Miller here from Whiteman Associates, who's helping us out with the design. And then we also have Matt Hill here from WSP, who is our traffic engineer. So that is the project team, and that's the folks that'll be putting together things for bidding out later this spring, and then, as you'll see, construction in the next following that. Okay, so today what we want to do, we've got a PowerPoint, about 17 slides, so it's not long. We'll go over the project limits with maps and things like that, talk a little bit about scope, talk about schedule, and then save some time for the end for questions and answers. And I would encourage you, if there's like a general question that you think would benefit the group, by all means, let's get that out there and we'll try and respond as best we can. If you have individual questions that are specific to your property, I would say if you can hang on to those questions, we're going to have a one-on-one at the end. Following everything, we'll stick around and we'll address those questions again just on a one-to-one basis. I think that, again, in order to be mindful of everyone's time here. All right, project limits, basically what you see here in purple, Van Raalte being the main stretch here. I can tell you that 2 years ago we had a 10th Street project. We weren't able to finish it up. The contractor was running late, and there was a lot of different things going on there. So we decided to stop that project early. We got through Washington Avenue, but we did not finish. So this project will include finishing what was the 10th Street project 2 years ago. So that's part of the scope. Then we're also looking at 2 blocks of 11th Street that are pretty old and tired. A lot of utilities and pavement and things like that, very old. So we're looking at those 2 blocks of 11th Street. That's going to look like a reconstruct, new curb and gutters, new pavement, that sort of thing. Quite a bit of utility work there too, storm sewer, what have you. We're going to carry that around 11th Street to Collin Park Drive, and then we're going to stop. There's a transition right in here by the fire station where we had a project a few years back that reworked some of the rail work through here and spur alignments, and then this is a fairly new alignment on Collin Park Drive. So we're basically just going to, what we call mill and fill, or take the top layer of asphalt off and put it back. So this will be pretty minimal in terms of construction. But again, the pavement itself can use some work, so we're going to tie that all together with this project. And then Van Raalte Avenue, basically from right in this area by Boatworks, and then we're going to take that down to 24th Street. There is also some work, the BPW has some water main work in the subdivision down here, Wildwood, what have you, and we do intend to bring Van Raalte Avenue all the way to 32nd Street, but we're a few years out on that. But that certainly is the intent, is to get the whole of Van Raalte all the way to 32nd. So that's a broad brush of where we're going to be, what we want to do. Okay, so the scope of work, and this varies depending on where we're going to be. And to be honest, we haven't completely finalized everything yet, but basically certainly looking at pavement, the underlying aggregate base, sand subbase, curb and gutters, more than likely. And then sidewalks, again, on some of those side streets where they're really tired, we're probably just going to do everything. But on some areas of Raalte where things are in pretty good shape, we may take a more surgical approach to that and only address those areas that are in need of improvement. And then also there's varying degrees of underground work, again, depending on where we're going to be and what kind of shape those utilities are in currently. As I mentioned, we're going to pick up the last half of that 10th Street project. Basically, we're complete through Washington Avenue, so we're going to be picking up the work just to the west side of Washington Avenue, bringing it through the Van Raalte intersection and basically to the railroad spur. And then I know the Parks Department has also been working with Ryan on some pavement work within the park itself in that cul-de-sac area there, right? Is that what Andy had you looking at? Both parking lots. Okay, got it. So that'll be also something that we'll be looking at some point this year. I know there's been a lot of discussion in the past about the intersection at Van Raalte and particularly pedestrian movements across the intersection. And so this plan sheet is basically what we pulled out of the 10th Street project. We're not planning on any changes to that. Okay, so the improvements that were approved and that we discussed before, we're just going to implement those. And so what does that include? So that includes, this is kind of a blow up of that, but we're going to be putting a dynamic speed sign up on the lead in around the curve into the intersection. We're going to be eliminating what we still intend to do with that 10th Street. Is this not working? Oh, come on. All right. So, you want to bring that back? Again, YouTubers, hopefully I'm coming through now. Again, 10th and Van Raalte intersection. For those folks that want to talk further about that, I'm happy to stick around after the meeting and talk specifically about that. But again, those improvements that were approved prior, we intend to follow through on those. All right, I'm going to turn things over to Brian Ritchie, and he's going to talk utilities. You got to get close to the mothership there.
Okay. All right. Everyone hear me okay? All right. As Brian mentioned, I'm Brian Ritchie with Holland Board of Public Works. So my side of this project is specifically looking at the water main and water services. So there you see on the screen there is the area which Brian just showed that we will be participating with replacing water main. Currently there's 100-year-old cast iron pipe that is well beyond its design life. So replacing that is obviously a must. And then with that water services replacement to be as part of this project as well. So with the water service replacement, there is, I'm sure you've heard of the state lead and copper rule. So this is a state mandated program that if you have a galvanized service, so galvanized is a material they used back in all the way dating back to pre-1970 basically, and they have found remnants of lead in it, so that is part of this program is getting that out of everybody's system and replacing the entirety of the service line. So this project would include the replacement of the water service from the main all the way into your house if you do have a galvanized service. And this would be at no cost to the resident. It is part of the, again, state lead and copper rule that the city covers the cost of that. So being that there would need to be private work performed, essentially replacing the service on your property, there would be an agreement that would need to be signed. This is allowing the contractor, BPW city personnel, to enter your property, to be able to get into your home, probably at least 2 times, once to see where your service comes into your home, and then again to actually perform the replacement of this service. So there will be a letter mailed out well before the project that'll spell this all out in terms of how that all works. But basically just know that if you do have a galvanized service, you will receive a letter that will be spelling this all out in terms of how it's going to be replaced, how it's covered, and all those sort of things. I'll show you a little visual here. So this is a water service, a typical water service. So here, the water main in the road to the curb stop box. So this is typically something you see right near the sidewalk, in between the sidewalk and the curb and gutter. So at the curb stop is where BPW City stops their ownership. So we own the curb stop and then the service from the curb stop to the main. The resident, the homeowner, owns everything from there into their house and then obviously everything inside the house. If you have a galvanized service, everything will be replaced from the main all the way into your house, tying everything into your internal plumbing. So just to verify, or just to specify again, this is for this project only, and as part of the state lead and copper rule, being replaced at no cost to you, the resident, with a 1-year warranty that if something were to happen in that 1 year after replacement, that cost will not fall on you. However, ownership still remains with you from the curb stop into your home. So beyond that 1 year, obviously any cost after that would fall on the owner. So just to kind of show you another, if it goes, there we go, kind of the aerial and profile view of what that would look like. So contractors are typically doing this in a drilling format, which is less invasive, if you will, to your yard, not going to tear everything up. They'll have to dig up at the curb stop to be able to install that, but they will typically drill from the curb stop actually into your house, into your basement wall or sometimes floor, depending on where it comes in. So again, that's why they'll need to confirm that before they go ahead and do that. Yeah, I think that was all I had there.
Yeah, I can take over from there.
Yeah.
Experience with this, we've done this for quite a few years now. It sounds like a lot, but again, we've been doing this on reconstruction projects for
Year number 3.
yeah. So, and I would say we've had real good success with it. So, wanted to share that with everybody. Again, we'll be around for those that are aware of their water service or want to talk more about the water service. Happy to do that. So, okay. Storm sewer and sump pump connections. If you do have a sump pump connection, and this is what we would call a clear water connection, right? Basically groundwater only. We really want that in the storm sewer, not in the sanitary sewer. And so the best way to do that is to connect into a catch basin out in the road in the curb line. If you have those already and you know that those are connected in, we're going to reconnect them as part of the project. If you want, or if you're contemplating installing a sump pump or doing any plumbing work, so to speak, please coordinate that with us because we'll want to incorporate that into our new storm sewer system. Again, groundwater should not be directed into sanitary. Floor drains, however, should be. Let's see, I think we covered everything. Oh, roof drains. If you do want to connect roof drains, we typically do allow that. However, there's limits to the size of that pipe. We typically like to see that smaller, like on the order of 3-inch in diameter or smaller. And again, if you get that to our system, you know, we can make sure that that gets connected into one of our catch basins. We do not allow any blind taps into our system, so we wouldn't allow you to tie into the side of a pipe per se, and that's for maintenance reasons, right? It's really hard to troubleshoot that in the future if there ever is a problem. When we do have you tie into catch basins, you know, you can simply look through the grate of the catch basin and see, yep, some pump's working, some pump isn't. You know, it's very easy to troubleshoot from that standpoint. So that's basically why we do that. Another thing that we typically will do is we'll install PVC or small diameter pipe sleeves underneath driveways. We don't do that with every driveway, but with most driveways, again, to try and facilitate a future connection to our storm sewer catch basins from various houses, we put those sleeves in for that purpose. Sometimes folks use them for sprinklers or what have you. But again, coordinate with us. If you have some of those needs, we want to make sure that we do that. Okay, we're a ways away from construction, and as you'll see when we talk schedule, there'll be another one of these public meetings to talk more specifics once we do get a contractor on board. But just some expectations during construction. Trash pickup will continue as it does currently. The one thing I will say is when you're right in the middle of construction, we would ask that you tape your address on your can, because a lot of times the contractor will load those cans up onto a piece of equipment and bring them to the edge of the roadway or the limits of construction, so that garbage truck doesn't have to go through construction to service those cans. So again, just so that you get the same can back that you put out, we ask that you put your address number there. But again, those cans should just go out to the edge of the road or the edge of the driveway as you normally would do, and we'll take it from there. Mail service should continue as normal. We typically work pretty good with the mail service. I think this is all a walking route, so I don't expect any issues with regard to mail. Sprinklers, if you do have sprinklers, and I'll say within the public right-of-way, that is between the sidewalks, in that green space between the curb and the sidewalk, chances are those are going to get disturbed as part of the project. And so we ask a couple of things with that. One, mark them if you can, please, as we get closer to construction. Typically, again, you'll receive notices and things like that, but a week before construction starts, if you get those stakes out there and just identify where the sprinkling is, that would be great. And then I've got another slide too to talk more particulars about sprinklers, but we do reserve a budget in the project for sprinkler repairs within the public space, and certainly if we tangle with any sprinklers on private property behind the sidewalk, we intend to fix those. So that's the sprinkler info. Again, I've got some additional points that I'll make here on the next slide. Tree survey and tree removals. We did have a licensed arborist go through and take a look at all the trees along the route, and there are some trees in various stages of health, and so those trees that aren't in the best of health, we're going to remove those as part of the project. And then there may be some good condition trees that are just in a bad spot under utilities or what have you that are going to have to go. So we'll identify those, and that's probably going to be a pretty big topic of the next meeting. We don't have those identified yet. We just have the survey done. But we're happy to share that information with you. And we do always, with our projects, do a tree planting, right? And we encourage that, right? We're a pretty tree-friendly city. So certainly if there's desires or interests in trees, street trees, let us know, and we'll make sure that we incorporate that to the best we can. That typically happens after the contract work is done. We've tried to lump the tree work into the construction contract with various degrees of success. It has worked out better for us just to let the contractor get through, do his thing. And then what we typically do, our standard operating procedure is to have a Vector truck come in and suck out the hole where the tree needs to go after construction's done, and then plop the trees in that way. So it's not real messy because we're using the Vector, and it happens very quickly. So one day there won't be trees, the next day there will be. So, but that again is going to be towards the end of the project, typically in the fall, or sometimes we will wait till the following spring to put those trees in. Utility service interruptions. Again, you're going to hear more about this at the second public meeting, but do expect that, as Brian Ritchie said, there's going to be probably at least 2 water service interruptions. They're typically on the order of hours, right? Not anything long. And then you will get advance notice on those, typically door hangers, or folks will hand out information on those. So again, that's more of a topic for the next public meeting, but just understand that that's kind of the standard operating procedure when we do look at water main replacements and water service work. Whoops. Sprinkling. So let's just talk a little bit. Again, flag ahead of time. I know some of you may have sprinkler contractors that are familiar with your system, and we're somewhat willing to work with those folks just because they know your system. We ask, though, that we get an estimate for those repairs ahead of time. And again, so once the contractor gets through, does his thing, things are starting to get restored. If you've got a sprinkler contractor that you'd like to, perform work on your system, coordinate with us, and then just expect that we're going to ask for an estimate from your contractor, and then we'll just work with him to get those repairs done. Okay? All right, project schedule. So as much as we would like to be over and done in 1 year and one construction season, there's a fair amount of work on this particular project. So I've got a slide here that talks about how we could break this up. We don't know yet, and again, it's going to determine, the contractor bids and contractor input will determine how that schedule wants to shake out. So again, we're not wholly set up yet with regard to limits for each year, but we do expect that this work is going to be spread out over 2 different years, 2023 construction, 2024 construction. And then, so the first year, we're going to focus on the northern end. Second year, it'll be Raalte south of 11th. And then some year following that, again, maybe 2025, 2026, depending on the BPW's work down at the south end of Raalte, we'll clean up the rest of Raalte to 32nd Street. Yes?
So that year 1 would see 11th Street.
Yeah.
Done.
Hang on. So phase 1 would be the blue here. And again, tentative, right, at this point. It'll depend on contractor bids and how things go that way. But certainly the desire would be, let's go ahead and get everything done through 11th Street intersection, and then when we do phase 2 on Raalte Avenue, we would divert traffic down Holland Park, and that just kind of works, right? So again, we'll know more by the time we meet again for the second public meeting, but this is kind of how we're angling right now with regard to that. All right, so next steps. Second public meeting, again, later on this year. We would send a postcard out to everybody. This will have contractor information on it, 24-hour contacts, things like that. That'll be on the postcard. That'll get sent to you ahead of phase 1. And then once we finish up with phase 1, as we get into the winter time next year, basically this time or slightly before, we would have a third public meeting for those folks in this area only. Obviously we wouldn't bring anybody else in at that point, but we would have a third public meeting, get everyone on board, and then postcards would go out before phase 2. So again, this is the plan at this point, subject to change and subject to how we do with regard to bids and things like that. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. And again, I would encourage you, if you have a one-on-one related question, please stick around and we can talk to you, one-on-one with regard to those. If there's something that's going to benefit the group, by all means. The street lighting, we do not have any plans to change the street lighting. However, there could be a possibility where the way it's serviced in terms of how the overhead lines are run, that may change a little bit. Again, I'm not sure. We're not far enough along in the design with regard to that. But, yep. Yes. Yep. Yep. Yeah, so all the lighting out there right now is down lighting. It's LED, it's the newer stuff, but it is on older poles in some cases. And so, yeah, that's something that we'll work with the BPW electric on. And it would be nice to get new aluminum pole. I follow what you're saying. Yep. So again, Not determined yet, but by the second meeting, we should have an answer for that. Yep.
And, talking about the poles, Douglas is a historic district,
Yep.
so are we gonna throw that out the window, or are we gonna take the concept, the light poles, lend itself to that?
Yeah, so again, the overhead, the Cobra heads, right, those are pretty standard regardless of, but the pedestrian lights or the decorative lights, yeah, those are gonna remain, yeah, we're not changing that. Yep, yes. 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 Sure. Yeah, yep, you bet. And this is still a work in progress, right? But yeah, we'll have to divert traffic around side streets and around the work areas. Yeah. Yeah, so that's to be determined yet. Obviously it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to post Washington if we're going to go right through it. And Maple more than likely would be the route, just because that intersection of Maple, we did that back in 2010, so we don't anticipate a whole lot of work in there. That could change, but again, the initial look would indicate that. Yeah. Okay, so we are, fair question. There is no way that we're going to be in here before tulip time. Okay, so let's cross that off. So we're talking after tulip time, and again, I'd be surprised if we're right after tulip time. I think it's probably more of a summer, midsummer kind of a thing where we would get started. And then once we get started, though, we're looking at, that's going to be basically, we're going to go for the construction season for all intents and purposes. So it'll be October, right before that phase would get wrapped up. Yes, yeah. So Pine Avenue, and that's one of the reasons that we delayed 10th Street and this work on Van Raalte is we didn't want both of those north-south streets tied up and under construction at the same time. And yes, we did take a long time on Pine Avenue. There was water main that showed up on site 2 months late, and we had every assurances from the contractor that it was ordered and it was good to go. And we ended up getting a truck with the pipe still hot from Alabama, basically right out of the factory. So that's what we're dealing with, right, and trying to manage. But hopefully you can appreciate that it's challenging. It's a challenging environment to work right now with regard to. Yep. So sure. And never say never, but that's certainly not the intent. And one of the things that was unique with Pine Avenue was that it was transmission main. So it was 24-inch main, a little bit oddball size. And this is all standard stuff, right? So we don't have any transmission main on this. Right? Okay, that's good. Yes. Yep. Sure.
I have two questions.
Okay.
One is on the 10th Street, Van Raalte intersection.
Yes.
Crosswalking. We have small children.
Yep.
We tend to go to Collin Park quite a bit.
Yep. Yep.
And there's nothing for safety. And, I'm having to get out in front, wave people off so my family can cross. And people don't stop without me risking my life for my family, which
Right.
is fine. I'd rather go than them, but we'd rather go to dinner together.
Right.
So I'm really would love to talk more. We can do this later, but
Yep.
I would love to push and love support here to really make that what you've got, for example, at night with
Yeah.
students.
Okay. So, and we have our traffic engineer here too, Matt, who can talk. We spent a lot of time, as I think folks in the area know. One of the unique things here, and let me just go back to that. Uh-oh. Let me see if I can bring this back. That's me. Ryan, do you want to see if they can get it back?
Yeah, there's also a request online that for people who have questions, if you can either repeat the question or give them.
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you. thank you. All right, do you mind? Okay, thanks. Great. Tricia's gonna take care of that. Go all the way back to that. If you give me the, I'll take the clicker. Yeah, that one. And yep, okay, got it. Thank you. So one of the things that we're dealing with here, it's unique, right? We've got the curve here where there's absolutely no line of sight for the crosswalk until you get around the curve. So that's why putting in the flashing lights and what have yous, we really don't think that that's going to be appropriate for this particular intersection. So we can talk more afterwards.
This is big. This
Yep.
is really big for all of us.
Sure.
We live there, and we watch people get nearly killed over and over and over again, because there's no crosswalk, there's no, why are Hope College students the only ones that get one?
Yeah. No, and hopefully you can, sure.
Move it to 11th Street.
Right. Hopefully you can appreciate, right? It's different conditions, right? Entirely different conditions and a different setup. And I'll let.
Yeah, it's a where I would agree. They're coming across that corner blind.
Yep.
And they're driving fast. With 9th Street, you have multiple stoppage opportunities.
Yep.
So it's a natural calming pattern.
Right.
There's no natural calming pattern.
Right.
On that turn. I would submit, and I think everyone would agree, there needs to be something there. It's dangerous.
Yep.
And I mean, you can see right here.
Yeah. I have kids. Yes.
Both.
Yeah.
And the thing is
We've walked across that intersection.
yeah, we do it during the summer in particular.
Yep.
We do it daily.
Yeah.
And I mean, I am flagging people down.
Yep.
And so, I don't know if there's an appeal to a state level, because there should be
Yeah.
some sort of, traffic.
Yeah. These are all city streets. State really doesn't have anything to do with that.
Maybe we talk more about that. But
Right.
the other thing is, the galvanized line, is there a
Yeah.
way of knowing prior to if we, I have
Yes. All right. So the question is about I got to remember to do this. So the question is about galvanized water services, and how do you know if you have one or don't have one? I'm going to pass it over to the expert.
Yeah, so like I said, we'll send out letters to everybody that we have record of that has a galvanized service, and this will be months in advance. So probably at the next meeting, we can have a list for you to tell you, yep, your address has one, or no, it doesn't. From looking at it just before I came here, there's a good majority of them that do. But if you're on 10th Street, I can tell you when they did, I think it was the sanitary on 10th in the 90s, they replaced it up to the right-of-way. But with this project, we would go from the right-of-way, attaching to that existing copper, because that's copper now, and then bring it into your house. So, yes, we'll address that.
All right.
Yeah, I take it from the presentation that you're not doing sanitary, but the answer I just heard, I'm not from this area. I've been here about-
Do you want to just talk to the?
Is sanitary involved in any way?
No, so we are not doing sanitary because in this stretch, it's either been lined, or in that one block I just mentioned, it's been replaced. Now, that being said, there are sanitary laterals that the owners own up to the main. With this project, it's yet to be determined if we are going to put stubs out to the right-of-way or not. It's being determined. But regardless, if you plan to replace your sanitary lateral in the near future, during this project would be an ideal time to do it.
I'm a tenant, but the property I'm on has a possibly unique situation. Our line and the neighbor's line.
Joint. Yes, so that,
Want to eliminate that and have a direct.
you're one of 10 in this project area. So not super unique. It was more common. Yeah. So, and that's something we can talk about too outside of this for those of you that are affected by that situation. I can send a letter out to you letting you know that you have a joint lateral.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So good info. Other questions? Yes. I think that's a good. Yeah. Let's do that, and then we'll get Matt involved, right? And we can have the larger discussion about. Yep. Yes.
Will we be able to park?
Yeah, good question. Yep. So typically, we're going to always try and maintain access for you to your driveway, but there are to your driveway approach. It'll be gravel likely, but you'll still be able to get through. There will be times when we actually pour the new driveway approach and pour the sidewalk crossing and pour the curb and gutter where you're going to have to stay off of that for typically 3 days to allow that concrete to set up and cure. So when you're doing that, when that is occurring, typically the road has already been built up to gravel grade, and you would just park along the road on that gravel grade next to your house. So typically that's kind of how that works. In some cases, again, depending on when you need to get in and get out, you may want to park on a side street just to not have to worry about whether or not the contractor, happens to be digging a trench in front of your driveway. So again, I would encourage everyone to just keep an eye on where the contractor is at and what he's doing, and feel free to converse, right? To try and determine, where those impacts are and when those are going to occur.
So we can park on the streets certain times of the year?
Yeah.
Extend that?
Yeah. So all those prohibitions and restrictions, those go away when you're under construction, okay? And if for some reason you do get a ticket, let us know, and then we'll take care of that. But
Can you reiterate, you're talking about on-street parking?
yes. So the question was about parking, right? And whether or not you're going to be able to park on the street, and if there's going to be any restrictions to that on-street parking throughout the course of the project. And the answer is there are not going to be restrictions. We're going to allow you to park on the street, particularly when you can't get access into your property. So again, and we coordinate that with the police department so that they don't, the idea or the intent is that they don't, they're not in there enforcing that.
So you mentioned the sidewalk and the and stuff, setting concrete, but like when you're trenching for water lines and whatnot.
Yes.
I mean, I'm assuming at the same point, like if you're trenching a water line across the road, I can't get into my house.
Correct.
The idea is how long will that typically?
Yeah, so that's, again, the contractor, every contractor is a little bit different, but you're talking an hour, that kind of a thing. So that's why I would encourage you that if you do foresee, you can see when the contractor's coming. They typically do the deepest utility first and work up from there. But so sometimes they'll cross your driveway several times, right? So they'll go deep and then they'll, build back up. If the storm sewer happens to be deepest, they'll do the storm sewer first, then they'll do the water main, and then, up from there. So, but again, I would encourage you, we're going to have an on-site inspector that's going to be out here when construction is going on. You're going to have his contact information as part of that postcard as well. And that person is a good resource as well to just talk with him. If you see him out there in front of your house, converse with them. Hey, where are you guys going to be at? And I think that helps. But they understand. They want to try and work with the group to maintain access. So, yes, sir.
There's no coordination with the fiber efforts at this point.
Yeah. So the question is about coordination with the fiber. You're talking City Holland Fiber. Brian, City Holland Fiber. Are they gonna? I think we're a little bit too soon for. Yep. They're still planning that? Right. Yeah, so, but I do know that, they're working out, right? So I do think that this is one of the earlier areas that will get it.
Will there be any time where there's no through traffic going north on Van Raalte or east of that?
Let's get to a slide here that's better for that. So the question is there ever going to be a time where there's no through traffic on Van Raalte? Yep.
And 11 at the same time.
Yes, yeah, so there will be. So there is work to be done within that intersection there. And so, yes, we're going to have that intersection closed. One of the things that we're going to do is phase the project so that we don't allow the contractor to just blow up everything at once. So it will be phased. But there is going to be a period of time where there'll be a detour, a posted detour. All intents and purposes will be Maple, probably, where folks will have to just go around.
But if I'm on the northeast corner of 11th and Van Raalte,
Yep. You'll be able to get access, yes. But it may be along 11th, or it may be Van Raalte, and it may change, yeah. So unfortunately, you're right there. You're in the zone. Yep. Yeah. Well, so here, but let's understand, the idea here is that we get clear, and again, the lines are something, but we're gonna get clear of that 11th Street intersection. The goal is to get clear of 11th Street by the end of the first phase.
When you talked about the sump pumps, we have a sump pump, but I don't know what you mean by groundwater, I guess.
Sure.
We use it for washing machines.
You do use it for washing machines? Okay, so the question is about, for the YouTube folks, the question is about sump pumps, and it sounds like the washing machine application for the sump pump. So in that case, that sump pump needs to be connected to the the sanitary sewer. Yep, and that's perfectly fine. So when I'm referring to sump pumps connected to the storm sewer, if you have a perimeter drain around the foundation of your house where that collects groundwater so that it doesn't seep into your basement or through your basement walls or up underneath your basement floor, that's what we want to have connected into the storm sewer system, okay? So, good question. There was another one. Oh, it'll come, yeah, right? Anybody else? Anybody else? Yeah. Again, we don't know that yet. The question is about when we're going to start. We don't know yet, but we will progress along this, and we'll let you know. Yep. Neighborhood events. So are we talking like? Oh, sure. Yeah. Again, it depends. It's hard to say at this point whether or not that would. I would encourage you. You may want to consider moving that up. Can we do that in May? So, yep. Okay. Yes. All right. Sure.
You keep saying you don't have a contractor. Is that pretty common at this point, not to have a contractor?
Yeah, I would say, we're a little bit behind on this project. I'll speak to that. But no, I think the idea is we're going to be working hard over the next weeks to put things together, get it out to bid yet, early spring, and then we'll see what we get with regard to bids. So. Yeah, and again, so that progression, next steps, again, we want to have another public meeting, and then we'll bring folks in the loop with regard to, the results. Yes? Okay, the question is, are rain gardens a possibility on this project? And I would say yes, they are. We've done them in a few different places, and this is basically, for those of you that may not be familiar with the terminology, taking that green space between the sidewalk and the curb and utilizing that more for stormwater purposes. So I would say, let's go ahead and we can put you in touch with a person at the MAC Coordinating Council.
Yeah,
Yep.
I've spoken to her.
Yep.
She said it would have to be when the city was going to.
Yes, it makes it a lot easier. Now is the time, particularly if you're on 11th or 10th Street. Now is the time to do that. Now, I will say that if we do go the route of rain gardens, that may limit the opportunities for street trees. So I guess, again, we can talk specifics about that. The other thing is, depending on vertically where you are and where the road is vertically, will determine too, how effective that rain garden can be. If you're at the low point in the road or near the low point, that's good. If you're at a high point, obviously there's not a whole lot of water. Yep. Yeah, okay, so that's good. Yep. So, yeah, and then the other thing with that though, that does not replace our traditional storm sewer infrastructure. So we still would intend to put in everything that we would normally do. We would just create the opportunities for some of that stormwater to go into that curb lawn area and get directed that way into the rain garden. So good question. And again, for those of you that want to look at rain gardens, I would ask you to just reach out to us at the transportation department. address, and we can talk with you further about that possibility.
Who do we talk to about trees?
Same thing. And trees, again, we'll probably spend a little bit more time on trees next meeting. But yeah, be thinking about it, and certainly let us know if you're interested in the street trees. And again, these are trees that we would plant between the sidewalk and the curb. And we do, I'll just preface, we typically have a variety that we like to stick with, just because they're a little bit more street and sidewalk friendly with regard to the root structure and things like that, and salt, that obviously comes off the road. So keep in mind that there's a group of trees, tree varieties that we typically like to stick with, so.
Somewhere online?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if we have something available. We can get you, if you want to let us know, we can get you that info. We do have the list. It's just whether or not that can get that out there. Yes, yeah. So what we can do too is we can put the PowerPoint out. Can we put that on our transportation website, more than likely? So we'll try and get that out there. The other thing is, if you put your email address down, then we can shoot that out to folks via email as well. So, great. So again, that question for the YouTubers was the PowerPoint, getting a copy of the PowerPoint, and yeah, we'll try and make that available on our website, and then also to folks. Again, if you want to put your email in on the chat, we can do it that way too.
I'm pretty sure we have galvanized, but if you don't have galvanized, you still have to replace it?
Yeah, so the question is again about water services, and I'm going to pass this over to Brian.
If you don't have galvanized, your service will be replaced with copper up to the curb stop regardless. And then beyond that, we would just attach to whatever existing material you have, which if you don't have galvanized, you probably either have plastic or what we call poly or copper. So again, you would.
You have to there is fine as long as it's intact.
Correct. Yep, we would just reconnect it.
Basically, something that's not galvanized, that's 65 years old, it's gonna have a lot more volume coming out of it.
No, it's actually the material itself is much more corrosive, and over time will just start to get smaller and smaller. So if you have very low water pressure, that's probably why.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I've replaced a bunch of those in my time,
Yes.
and it's a nightmare.
Yes. Yeah, and with a new copper or plastic service, you'll see that dramatically change. Yep.
This is a traffic question, because you consider it for neighbors, there's on Van Raalte, heavy traffic, meaning semis,
Yes.
where are they all?
Yeah. Yep. So we're gonna, for all intents and purposes, we're gonna have to intercept a lot of that truck traffic further up the network. And so typically there'll be message boards and things like that. We're gonna have a random straggler, right, truck that's gonna get here, and we'll have to shoot them out 9th Street or something like that. So yes, Van Raalte Avenue is a truck route, okay?
Only up till 16th Street.
Correct. But we're not planning on changing that. That's gonna stay the case. Right, okay. Yeah, the question again was regards to heavy truck traffic and how that gets detoured. And again, we're going to detour those along our main lines ahead of the project, so.
Coming to this meeting assuming that this project was going forward until I got here, and then there's discussion that it could not start this year. Are you feeling pretty confident that it will?
So in this day and age, 5 years ago, the question is how confident are we that we're going to proceed with the project this year? Okay, and it's a fair question. Again, 5 years ago, I would say, yeah, we're doing it. This day and age, again, there's just so many variables out there that we're having to deal with regard to parts and materials and what have you. So we're going to make sure that we get all those ducks in a row. We're going to, get this out to bid. We're going to receive bids, and then we'll visit with everyone again with the second public meeting and let you know what we find out. But I would say, had I to, the majority would indicate that we have a project this year. Yes.
Okay, so the second part of that would be, if you're committing that point, like, given a later start date, love to try to still get this thing done by October.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Is there a call date, in other words, you're like, we gotta call it?
oh, no. So when you look at this in relation to work that we've done elsewhere, this is a very doable project in the time frame that we're looking at. Yeah, I'm not. And granted, a lot of this Collin Park Drive is just simply a what we call a mill and fill. So again, yeah, I think my hesitation has to do more with the bidding environment and the supply. Yes. Yep. All right. Okay. Do we want to get to questions online?
The only question was whether we're planning on replacing the sanitary lateral on 11.
Yeah, so again, I would encourage that person, and if they can provide the address and their info, then we can talk with them about the sanitary. All right. Any other questions online, Ryan?
No, that was it.
That was it. Okay, we did get a couple of questions that were sent in early. And again, a lot of it has to do with the sanitary work or, the extent to which we do that. And again, I think we've talked about that. I would encourage you to investigate, but then, just work with us with regard to that. We would, particularly on those joint laterals, that you'll get some kind of correspondence from us so that at least right, what you're up against with regard to that. There's some questions here about how much does concrete cost or how much does the service line work cost per linear foot. Again, I would say to that that's really something that we would encourage you to work directly with the contractor on. We would not be the mediary for that. The work that we're going to do here is going to be up to the right-of-way line. There could be instances where we have to go beyond the right-of-way line. That's all work that we're going to do. That you're not going to be responsible for that. If you have private side work, your driveway or what have you that you do want to do, or any kind of pipe work that you would want to do, we would ask that you work directly with the contractor on that and not with us, so that we would not be the intermediary for that. So, and you'll have, again, with those postcards and at that second public meeting, you'll know who that contractor is and there'll be contact information for that. I would caution you, though, that the contractor that we will hire is going to be more of a mainline contractor doing volume work, and so they may not even entertain a price to you for doing, bits and pieces, so to speak. And again, it's nothing against that. They're just their volume throughput mindset, and it may be better just to get the private contractor, that's more accustomed to the fine, a couple of feet of pipe here, a couple of feet of pipe there, a few square feet of concrete, that sort of thing. But again, you're welcome to reach out, and if they want to extend a price to you, that's between you and the contractor with regard to that. All right, and then I think that's about it with regard to questions. We're happy to stick around and talk about the crosswalk at 10th in Raalte. Any other questions with regard to online? Okay, great. Well, thank you all for attending. And again, I would encourage you to keep an eye out in the mail in the springtime, as we would send out notices for meeting number 2. Thank you. All right, thanks.